Hey everyone, Fibbers are here to talk to the Void once more. And after last time's debacle with Claw, two things had happened. One, I had to get the taste of that movie out of my mouth. I had to watch something better, not a high bar. And two, because my streaming service Roulette initially brought up a movie that I hadn't seen the predecessors to, I felt obligated to, well, start remedying that. So, it's kind of going forward, whenever something like that happens on streaming service Roulette, I will try to find the prequel, original, what have you, at the soonest opportunity. This one was a little easy because I actually own a copy of Hatchet, which is the first in that series. However, the one I was looking at before was part 4. Now, I'd seen this one before, but I've not seen part 2 or part 3. So, giving a review and revisiting Hatchet seemed like it was about the thing to do. If that movie comes up again, I'll just go default back to Hatchet 2 and continue from there. Now, Hatchet long has had a pretty good reputation in the horror realm. Kind of a return to form for American horrors. In fact, it advertises itself as old school American horror. And I'll be honest with you all, the first time I saw the movie, I didn't really care for it. I know it's like sacrilege in the horror genre, but Hatchet really didn't do it too much for me the first time, but I think the problem with that was all the hype it had gotten. It had been so overhyped that I was expecting something to blow me away. And what I ended up getting was a average slasher film. So I was a little disappointed and hadn't bothered to take a look at it again since then. But reviewing it now, I may have been a little too harsh on it the first time. And that's largely probably because of how much attention it had gotten and how many rave reviews it was getting. Looking at it again, I really didn't have any of the main issues I was having the first time around, mostly because I knew what I was getting into this time. I knew a little bit more about what to expect. And what this movie does, I will say it does actually do pretty well. It's sort of in the same vein as Friday the 13th or The Hills Have Eyes, kind of a halfway point between those two, and in doing its thing, it does pretty well. It, despite it being in 2006, it relies almost zero on CGI from what I could see. But the gore effects are very well done, and, well, there's a lot of it. I mean, I was watching the unrated version, but whew. And it kind of doesn't take itself too seriously, which I think is to its benefit. It kind of has a tongue-in-cheek feel to the whole thing. It sort of knows it's a ridiculous slasher film and just runs with that. So it goes over the top on the blood, the gore. It goes over the top on nudity. It sets itself during Mardi Gras, so it's just trying to. It's ticking all the boxes and hitting all the tropes, but doing it with a slight wink. And also, there's several cameos from, well, several horror greats in it. Most of them in kind of a small or bit role, with the exception of, well, Kane Hodder, who plays Victor Crowley, and doing what Kane Hodder does best is being the strong, imposing horror monster. But he also actually has a secondary role as his character's father, which we get a rare out of makeup scenes with Kane Hodder, which was pretty cool. We also have guest appearances from Robert Englund of Nightmare on Elm Street fame as a swamper redneck, and Tony Todd as what was his character's name? Reverend Zombie, who's a he just has a brief scene as he directs the characters to a different boat ride, and his scene was actually one of my favorites in the movie, and one of the few things I actually remembered coming from after watching it the first time was Tony Todd of Candyman fame. And for those of you not as into the horror genre as I am, Kane Hodder is most known for the Friday the 13th series, particularly the latter end of them. And he personally is actually my favorite Jason. Alright, so this movie's plot is pretty standard slasher fare. Then a pair of friends during Mardi Gras, one of them is depressed and just wants to get away from the crowd, so they go on a haunted swamp tour with a collection of characters, including a tour guide who has no idea what he's doing, a amateur porn maker, and his two girls he's pretty much duped into being on camera for him. Uh, then there's a Midwest older couple that's just swear doing the stereotypical Minnesotan, North Dakotan accents. So, oh boy. And a quieter woman who's just not saying anything, who's there along for more mysterious reasons, but when trouble goes down and she pulls out a gun, she's there to kick some ass. Now, overall, the movie, on a second viewing, it does do what it does very well. A bunch of people running around the swamp being chased by Victor Crowley. Now, his deal is pretty much on this haunted swamp tour. This is supposedly Victor Crowley's swamp. Now, he supposedly died many years ago. He was a deformed man who lived with his father, and after a Halloween incident gone awry, his father accidentally hit him in the face with a hatchet, causing him to die. 10 years later, his father just sort of just wasted away, and ever since then, people have been going missing out there, saying that Victor Crowley has come back. So it kind of makes it unclear on just what or who Victor Crowley actually is. I mean, he is done up in sort of a deformed redneck mutant, sort of in a similar vein to Hills Have Eyes, actually. But they keep also referring to him as a ghost. But despite he gets shot, he gets stabbed, but he keeps getting back up, usually off camera. So they kind of leave it as unclear as whether he's just been a man who's been hiding out in the woods the whole time, or if he's come back from the grave. That is not answered in this film, but as there are three more, we might get some more insight into the legends of Victor Crowley later on. The main cast is, for the most part, lesser known actors, with the exception of the main character, who is Joel David Moore, who is never really like a main character, but he's in a lot of things, like Avatar or Dodgeball. He's usually the nerdy side character, typically. Though I will say it was very distracting having him wearing a Newberry Comics shirt the whole time, since where I live, Newberry Comics is a fairly recognizable brand, so that was a little distracting seeing the grinning smile on his t-shirt the whole time. So the gore is good. It's not the most suspenseful movie, but the humor in it does work. Now, it's not a perfect film. There's a few characters that do get kind of annoying. The dumb blonde character is so dumb you're wondering how she is even alive at this point. And some of her dialogue is painful, but it doesn't linger on her too long. The only other issue I have, and it's kind of more of a tentative issue, and that is the ending. Now, I'm not going to spoil too much, but it sort of just ends. Very abruptly. I mean, it does make it seem like... So, I've seen movies do this before, and then they pick up the sequel at that exact moment. So if Hatchet 2 does that, it gets a pass totally. If it doesn't, it's a little unfortunate, but it's done in a way where you can logically assume what happens next, but at the same time, doing it like this does leave some room for interpretation and for the sequel to pick up with it. So, while I don't directly care for it, I'm trying to keep an open mind for Hatchet 2. Overall, old school American horror, yeah, it does fit that bill. It does feel like it, but the effects are definitely more modern, despite, I want to say the camera techniques and the way it's shot seems more modern. Like, the special effects do look like they could have been out of the older eras. So it's a good return to form for slasher films. I definitely was a bit too harsh on it, so you just have to be ready for what you're getting into with Hatchet. It isn't anything above and beyond, but it isn't really trying to be. So it's a fun enough slasher film. Now, I was debating where to put this one on the MacGuffins, but between 3 to 4, I kind of wavered back and forth. This one, I am going to give it a 4. 4 MacGuffins. What works in it really does work. It's not going to be my favorite by any means, but I'm more willing to give this one a go every once in a while now. I got the initial I think that initial bad taste was a little unfair towards it that I had. So I do recommend Hatchet. It's definitely worth seeing for the practical effects alone, and it's a fun movie. So take care. I'm probably gonna do another roulette coming up soon, or I'm not sure exactly what but I do enjoy doing those. So now that I've caught up on this one, might hit up another one of those next time. I'm not sure yet though. Take care.